Am I the asshole for not letting my kids play with my eldest son's PS5? My son Adam is 16 and for a while he's wanted to get a PS5 for himself. He started working part-time on weekends at a friend's car wash and saved up enough to buy it a few months ago. It's practically his baby. He keeps it clean, treats it delicately and keeps it in his room. I have two younger sons, Peter, 11, and Stephen, 9. They have both asked Adams if they could also have a turn to play his PS5, but he's always said no, and it's not that Adam is trying to be selfish. I love my boys, but they are both huge klutzes. He lets them play his Xbox and I can't tell you how many times they have dropped those controllers getting too into their games or fighting over whose turn it is. He let Peter use his laptop once to watch videos. And after being told not to walk around with the laptop he did anyways, going downstairs to get a snack while still watching something on the laptop. He tripped and messed up the screen. We went to get it repaired. Don't worry, Peter got in trouble for not listening to what we said. But Adam was still pretty upset about it. So to me, I understand why he doesn't want to share this with them, but my wife feels he's not being fair with his siblings and giving them a chance. She's talked to Adam about sharing his game. He still doesn't want to, and since he bought it with his own money he feels should be allowed to decide who plays with it. And honestly, I agree. He wanted the game for himself, got a job to save up for it. So I told my wife to let him have this, and it's not the end of the world if the boys don't get to play the PS5. They have their own games. Now she thinks I'm being an ass for thinking it's not wrong that he's refusing to share with his brothers. And obviously the boys are going to feel left out. But again, don't see how that's the end of the world when they have other stuff to do. Am I being an ass for feeling this way? Not the asshole. He paid for it and they've proved to not take care of things. She can buy a family console if she feels so strongly. Not the asshole in the slightest. As a teenager myself, I can tell you the feeling of buying your first somewhat expensive thing after saving and working your ass off for it. And if you don't want someone to do anything with that, especially little brothers, it's your choice. I'd say to keep defending the eldest son and talk to your partner. Edit. Thank you for all the upvotes. I'm kind of shocked. It's his PS5, not the family's. He made the money, he gets to spend it as he wishes, and that's his personal property and everyone needs to respect that. You are most certainly not the asshole here. Not the asshole. I am the oldest child who was forced to share everything with my much younger half-siblings. They sure do fuck stuff up because they're kids who don't understand the value of possessions yet. This probably also contributed to a crappy sense of self-worth on my part, since my property and feelings didn't matter to mom. Not the asshole. He paid for the PS5 with his own money that he worked hard for, therefore it's up to him to allow who can or can't play. In a sense, it will also teach the rest of the kids the importance of responsibilities and that if they can save up they can buy their own things that they don't have to share. Given the children history of breaking or damaging previous electronics, the oldest has the right to not want to share. However, to avoid arguments you should all have a sit down and explain to the children why they are not allowed to use it, making them aware that the oldest worked hard on his own to purchase this product, therefore only he can decide who can have a go. Not the asshole. Siblings don't need to share everything. Adam bought this after working and saving up money for it. It's his to do with what he wants. The younger boys have access to a different console, they're not being deprived. Maybe Adam would consider letting them play if they had their own controllers, games, any accessories that are needed to keep them from actually touching Adam's console? Though I'd say that the boys should have to be the ones to save up and buy those things, chores, or if they get money on holidays or allowance. But it's something I'd ask Adam about privately, and tell him there is no expectation that he agrees to this, it's just a thought for a compromise, but again, not at all necessary in my opinion. Not the asshole. This expensive piece of equipment was bought and paid for by Adam. He deserves respect for that. Not all 16-year-olds are prepared to work to get what they want. The other boys have an Xbox to play with, it's not like they are neglected. It is a good lesson for them to learn that this is what comes from not respecting other people's property. Not the asshole. Your wife has some messed up priorities. Adam's little brothers have routinely broken his things. It's just a matter of time before they break the new gaming system. Loving your children equally doesn't mean that you treat a 9-year-old the way you do a 16-year-old. Not the asshole. If your son worked his butt off to afford a PS5, then that is his and he can say who plays on it. Your wife is the asshole because you know how your other sons are, and if they broke something on the PS5, would your wife replace it? The controllers alone are between $50–$70 depending on where you go. Your two other sons need to understand the concept of boundaries, and if Adam says no, then that is the answer. You can find PS5s pretty cheap online. Have you explained to your wife that if one of your more clumsy children breaks the PS5 that it would be effectively impossible to replace in any kind of expedient manner? Not the asshole, obviously. I told my wife to let him have this, and it's not the end of the world if the boys don't get to play the PS5. They have their own games. Now she thinks I'm being an ass for thinking it's not wrong that he's refusing to share with his brothers. Not the asshole. This is called good parenting. Yeah. Not the asshole. PS5 are hard as hell to get. I've been waiting for a month to get mine shipped from Walmart because they run out of stock so fast and scalpers use bots to get multiple ones and charge double price. Hell no. Nah. No. Edit. A sentence. Not the asshole. It's not your property to give permission for. Your son followed your rules to save for that. He did something one half the kids his age wouldn't bother to do. If you let his siblings play because your wife is an enabler, he's going to call you out on that. This is just a simple case of annoying younger siblings wanting something they can't have or wanting to fuck with the older sibling. Unfortunately, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better when the younger kids continue to complain. Not the asshole, but your wife definitely is. Your son worked his butt off for his PS5, he paid for it, it's his end of story. If your wife wants to be disappointment to your son, tell her keep it up. Not the asshole. I was the younger brother and not a klutz or anything. But if my brother said I could not play on his computer, Amiga, then there was no discussion. It was his and it was his choice. Not the asshole. That's Adam's property. He paid for it. It is not yours to let anyone else touch it. How would you like your next-door neighbor to tell your kids that they can drive your car? Not the asshole. You are supporting your son more than you know, letting him see how hard work and saving pay off. Thank you for not being the parent who insists that everything gets shared or gets turns. Each child should have their own special something that is exclusive. And you are teaching your younger children a lot of lessons right now. You can't get what you want. You must be more careful, and how to work and save for what they may want. I'm sorry your wife is giving you grief. She is probably just tired of hearing the younger ones whine about it less than s. There are other forms of entertainment in the house. He bought it with his own money, and while it would be very nice of him to share with them, he has every right not to do so, and no one has any right to force him to share, given their track record, and that he bought it with his own money, which he got by working. A good parallel. If in a year, your son totaled his first car, and wanted to use yours, might you choose to do so, being nice? Yes. Given his track record, would you be worried about him breaking it? Perhaps. Did you buy it yourself? I'll assume at least partially, with your wife possibly contributing the rest. Does he absolutely need it? Not at 17. Do you have to let him use it? No. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Sharing is a wonderful skill to have, but it's also okay to have boundaries about what you share, or how often, or with whom, etc. He has a very valid reason for not wanting to share the first major purchase he made with his own money with his siblings that have a long history of being very careless with his items. My dad's mother treated him like this too, you know. Everything of his had to be shared with his younger brothers regardless of how poorly they treated his stuff. It took decades into adulthood for them to get over their issues with each other. Boundaries are normal and healthy. Let your kids have reasonable boundaries with each other. Not the asshole. My husband bought a PS5 and he rarely lets our kids use it, they are 6 and 8. They are not entitled to use a gaming system way beyond their needs just because it's in our house. Your teen bought it with his own money, he gets to decide who gets to use it. He's being responsible for his own belongings, which is a good and healthy trait. Not the asshole. Your wife is the asshole and being a bad parent for not focusing on teaching your younger children to respect other people's belongings and rewarding bad behavior. I'm a klutz. I break my stuff all the time. I am much, much, more careful with other people's stuff. Your younger kids also have their own games. Your wife needs to get on board with teaching them to not be entitled to other people's property. She's doing them a huge disservice and creating resentment in your family. Kids develop at different stages. It's a pretty easy lesson to learn that older siblings get to do things that younger siblings have to wait for. And it's a terrible lesson to teach your older son that he can work hard for something, but it will be taken away if someone else throws a big enough tantrum. Not the asshole. My oldest has an Xbox One he got for his birthday and still doesn't have to share it with his siblings. Every kid has things they prize and don't want to share. My oldest has his console, his art stuff, and his Warhammer minis. My 5-yo has a doll no one can touch unless she says so. 10-yo doesn't let anyone borrow her phone or tablet. Not everything has to be shared. Much like I assume your wide has something TGE kids do not get to mess with, craft stuff, makeup, whatever. If Adam's is his PS5, so be it. It's Adam's console, not the family's. Not the asshole. I think you and Adam are absolutely correct. He bought it, he decides. And this is a good teaching moment about boundaries for the younger kids. Is mom going to make him share his first girlfriend? His car? His college dorm? His first house? Not the asshole, and mom needs to sit this one out. Not the asshole. Thank you for teaching your kids to respect ownership and other people's possessions. NRA. Think of other things he might buy himself, like a car. Would he be obligated to let his brothers drive it? No. Not the asshole. More parents need to think like you op. The kid worked hard for and it is his right if he wants to share it or not. You could ask him if it's okay for them to play if he doesn't mind. But with all those previous accidents, I agree with his fears, and especially how super rare this console is right now. I'm desperate scrolling through this looking for anything other not the asshole. I would love to read their reasoning. By the way, not the asshole. Not the asshole. Does your wife hate your older child or severely favor the younger ones? Forcing him to give up his assets which paid for and owns for his siblings' use, after they have proven multiple times that they can't be trusted, is a sure way to ensure he'll go low contact or no contact as soon as he can when he leaves home. If she can't see this, then maybe you can ask her to hand over her car keys to a teenager who has already gotten in several accidents and see how she feels. She's not doing the younger ones any favors either. They'll rely on running to her to get what they want in the future. Not the asshole. He worked to pay for it himself. It's his to decide if he lets anyone else play with it. What is this crap we see over and over about permitting people to abuse and ruin your stuff because family? The younger brothers have demonstrated their irresponsibility. They aren't monsters, just young heedless kids. Adam has a right to his own possessions. Anybody who reads this sub already knows that. NTA, but mom is definitely TA for holding out hopes to the younger brothers. Not the asshole. As an older sibling who had to share everything, I thank you. Not the asshole. Especially the fact that he himself worked for it shows how important it is to him. Maybe I'm biased. I have 4 younger siblings, but I think it is an important part of childhood to learn to respect boundaries and other people's stuff. Also, 9 and 11 seems a little young to me for children to play with a PS5. Not the asshole. This is between Adam and your other 2 sons. Adam worked and saved his money for it. It's his PS5 and only he has the right to state who can use it. I would simply stay out of it other than to reiterate that it's not your permission to give. Not the asshole. He bought it with his own money, so it's not really up to you or your wife. Your younger kids can learn the valuable lesson of not always being able to get what they want, and then later when they really want something they can work for it. It's not like he's withholding medical treatment or food, something that they need. If your wife wants them to be able to play a PS5 so bad she can buy one for them herself, but no, that's unfair if you made one child buy it for themselves and he should get a present of equal value as well. NTA, tell him to add a passcode his profile. Not the asshole at all. I got my PS2, my PS3 and PS4 as joint birthday. It's in August, Christmas gifts over the years. I didn't spend a cent to buy them. PS2 and PS3 are long gone. There were break-ins and yes, I'm very paranoid when I go out. But my mom could understand and respect that I didn't want my older brother playing it due to his entitled behavior and also past actions with our old shared console, saying it was too hot when it was my turn and turning it off and jumping back in when it cooled down, and throwing tantrums whenever my mom tried to intervene. Your wife can understand that she didn't spend a cent on it. He bought it himself. He's the only one that gets a say who plays on it. I would ask the wife this. What lesson is she trying to give by this? That when he moves out and has a roommate break something of his he shouldn't be bothered by it? That nothing he acquires by his own hard work is ever truly his? He's old enough for some personal ownership and the other boys are old enough to take personal responsibility if they want a PS5 so bad they could do extra chores for you or neighbors to earn money. It's not his duty to manage his brother's expectations, it's the parents'. Don't let your wife make the younger ones act entitled to the older kid stuff. That's just gonna put a rift between him and you. This mama of 2 is completely on your side. Not the asshole. NTA, his money, his PS5. Not the asshole. It's Adam's property and he should get to decide who has access to it or not. Your wife should respect that, especially since this is not a family PS5. Not her place to dictate who gets to use it. When I was 16 I saved money and bought myself a car. I did all the insurance stuff and paid for that, too. Then a year later my parents bought my brother a car and paid for the insurance too. I'm still salty about it, and that was 30+ years ago. Don't buy the younger boys something that the older one paid for himself. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. He showed real pride and worked for that. If you bought something and your neighbors didn't have it, would you feel obligated to share it? Let's say your neighbors are your siblings? You buy a brand new car and your sibling has none, do you share it? Said siblings have a history of reckless behavior. You buy any nice item, are you obligated to share? If you wouldn't apply this rule to yourself, why is this rule imposed on children all the time? Sharing is nice, but it's also important to teach children some things are theirs and they are allowed to have those items. It teaches responsibility, respecting boundaries. It's something those boys need to understand. Not the asshole. It's his gaming system. If your wife wants a family console for the kids to break, she can get one. Honestly, if the kids aren't responsible enough to not walk around with a laptop, yet then I wouldn't buy them a super expensive gaming system either. Has she ever read Superfudge? Where the family explains to little Fudge that his older brother gets privileges he doesn't because he's older and more responsible. It's a great book for nicely explaining it. Not the asshole. My 2-year-old was able to grasp that the bike some kid left laying next to the playground was not his and so he couldn't play with it. He got upset, but I was able to redirect him. If a toddler can get this concept, then your 11 and 9-year-olds can. Sure, it sucks not to be able to play with the PS5, but that is your eldest's and he has the right to deny them access. Especially when they have a history of destroying stuff. Not the asshole. I wonder how your wife would feel if her siblings took her car. After all, siblings share. Your wife wants to pander to Peter and Stephen at the expense of Adam. Sibnilg share thing is BS. You don't have to share everything because your sibling demands it. Has your wife shows any favoritism towards the youngest? Not the asshole. PS5 is super expensive and very difficult to find. Since he bought it with his own money, he has every right to decide who gets to play on the console. Not the asshole. I don't understand why wife feels younger kids are owed in this situation. The console is eldest kids. Having younger siblings doesn't necessitate sharing everything. Plus, 15 is a lot different than 9 or 11. Of course they'll be jealous of things he gets to do. She wouldn't expect him to take them to baseball practice with him or driving lessons. She's just tired of hearing them complain, and it's unfair she expects her son make sacrifices instead of learning to tell the younger ones, no. Not the asshole. He should decide who uses the PS5 if he paid for it. But as a compromise, I'd consider getting an extra controller myself. Make the kids do chores to work for it or something, for the younger ones to use, and encouraging them to play something together occasionally if that's possible, if Adam is open to that. They don't really have to interact with the console itself, and sharing is a good skill to learn and encourage, as long as Adam doesn't have to worry about it getting broken. But at the end of the day it's up to him. You may want to have your wife go look at how hard it is to obtain a PS5 currently and what the currently scalper pricing is. Maybe she will think twice about things, realizing they are well over $1,000. Also, not the asshole. It's his console, he shouldn't be forced to share. Not the asshole op. Have you thought of buying a lock for your oldest? Just in case your wife decides to take the game system herself.